going on, guys? This is Cade Lamb, and you are listening to the Fear Not, Do Right podcast. You may be listening to this podcast, drinking your coffee, eating your beer. I'm here with a very special guest today who has coined that phrase in all of his videos. You know him as the talking balaclava, but now I think he's kind of taken on a new form. Welcome to the show, Aaron Visconti.
Thank you for having me, sir. That's a fantastic line. I like that line a lot. When I hear it read back to me, I'm like, ooh, this is some good writing. I like it even more.
Well, it really rolls off the tongue, and it's like, oh yeah, that is exactly what I'm doing. How does he know? I'm sitting on the toilet, I'm eating my coffee and drinking my beer.
Exactly. I coined that phrase when I was watching all that YouTube when I was on the toilet. My legs were going numb, and I was like, why am I on the toilet? Well, I was eating my coffee. Or what else was going on? I was also drinking some beer.
So for those who don't know who Aaron Visconti is, which is pretty much everybody up until today. Today, May 17th is a big day for you. But big day. For those who don't know who administrative results, executive outcomes, Aaron Visconti is, where did you start off on? What is it that you do?
I do YouTube full time. That's the full time gig as it stands right now. I was a prior law enforcement officer. I became a cop in 2019. Right before the worst time to become a cop ever was just a few months later, right? So started the virus, then the race riots of 2020, and then it just didn't really get that much better. And the agency I was working for was also kind of like not handling this situation. I think it just had to do with leadership, but and I ended up just bouncing out and starting YouTube full time because I already had started it. And I left over the mandatory vaccine order. So that's essentially like that was the best job I ever had until becoming a full-time YouTuber.
And just to clarify, not to throw him under the bus or anything, but it was the Salt River Indian Reservation?
I've actually never said, but yeah, I work on an Indian reservation and it was Salt River. And nothing against them. I mean, they're doing what the res does. And yeah, it was a mandatory vaccine. I was like, all right, I'm getting out of here.
Well, I grew up with a lot of those guys. A lot of the older dudes, around that 2010 to 2015 time frame, because that's where my dad cut his teeth.
I know. Yeah. I heard about that.
And I mean, all the dudes over there at the time, my football coach, he was a Salt River dude. My neighbor across the street, a lot of dudes I went to church with. A lot of those guys had come over every Saturday for the UFC cards. And so they had a really good community over there.
Yeah. I mean, I liked the department. It was really fun. It was a really well-paying job. I got commissioned as a cop at 22. They gave me a badge and a gun, which is wild looking back. I'm just 26 now. And looking back at just how young the gap is from 26 to 22. Like 26 to 25, 26 to 24 didn't feel as big of a gap as like, being a 22-year-old. And they're like, all right, dude, you're going to go police the streets. It's like, oh, God, okay.
Well, and it's a pretty kinetic area over there too. If you're not familiar with Salt River, it is off of the 101 to the east, and it's right next to Scottsdale. And it's so crazy too, because on the one side of the freeway you have Scottsdale, and the other side it's Indian Reservation. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know how it was when you were there, but I know that when my dad was a detective I can't remember what year it was, but they had more drive-by shootings on their res than every other department in every municipality in the state of Arizona combined.
Yeah.
Like they had more drive-by shootings.
I would say I definitely missed that era. I still encountered drive-by shootings when I was on patrol, but I definitely missed like the era of guys being like, we got into this gunfight while they were doing a drive-by and it was crazy. The guys were shooting AKs at us. We had to get a Bearcat. And I was like, in my dumb little brain at the time, I was like, honestly, that sounds like a great way to cut your teeth as a young guy. But now, like, my brain's fully developed. I'm like, okay, I'm happy I kind of missed that page.
Was there a day when you wore the badge that was like the day, the pinnacle? Like you put on the uniform that day, and you were able to go out and get after it.
Man, there was some really cool days. There were some really fun days where it's like, I have made a difference. I have done it. I have conquered the world. And there was days that just sucked and were really boring. I remember there was one day we were working a case, and it was just this one always stands out to me because it was kind of like I could have died, but it thankfully didn't work out because the guy didn't want to shoot me in the head. And we were involved at one of the casinos, and essentially involved a stolen gun, some drugs, and they casino security, of course, because they're always on top of watching cameras, saw like where the guys went. So I go to confront them while my other buddy is running the serial number on a CZP-10. And as I'm confronting him, it's like he essentially, I go to for a Terry frisk due to like the involvement of the case, and he pulls away, and so there's like a fight on kind of thing, the totality of the circumstances. So yeah, and then thankfully it's like I tackled him, and all like the gun and some drugs fell out, and it was one of those things where I was like, ooh, that could have gone really bad. Like that could have gone very sideways, but thankfully it didn't. That was a really high feeling knowing that it's like you technically got into a street fight and won, and then the stakes were that high of like lethal force could have been involved. And thankfully, like it was all resolved and didn't end up going that route. But that was a really impactful day, and that's just like another day on the job. You know what I mean? This is a boring day for a patrol guy. Or not boring, more exciting day, but at least a lot of paperwork, which sucks. So that was probably the worst part of the job is the paperwork, man.
Yeah. Well, I know out there you kind of have a little bit more flexibility to really police and to be a cop and get. And it's funny how people freak out about it more when they see it, but it's so much more effective and safer in the long run when you actually are able to go hands-on with someone in a situation rather than just being like threat, gun.
Right.
And you have that escalation of force. Like,
yeah, if you can, I mean, what's safer is getting hands-on with someone or shooting someone. You know what I mean? So it's definitely having that use of force matrix and understanding is really important. You know, I've been out of the game for 2 years now. And of course, I'm not some tenured expert cop. I'm just a guy that experienced it for just 2 years. You know what I mean? So it definitely is a more effective method when you get to use the proper. Of course, you don't want to go overboard. You know what I mean? Like anybody listening knows that, but
you don't want to kneel on their neck, or
right.
Like
You don't want to kick the summer off with some fire. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, having the ability for that use of force that you can use is really important.
Now, when it came down to making the decision to separate from the department, was that brought on you by the lead? Was that kind of pushed down by the leadership from the department, or was it tribal? Or
yeah, I think it was probably tribal pushing down on the PD leadership is my guess. This is all hypothetical, so I think that was probably the case. So they essentially released an email like, "Hey, you have 30 days to get the vaccine." At which point I was like, oh, geez, this is really going off the rails. Like, I don't, and I'm not like a big, anti-vax person. I was never like, you're going to get the vaccine and it's going to ruin you, like for any of the stuff before. But for this one, it just felt so, like, politically pushed. It felt so unnecessary at the time based off all the information they were giving us. It's like, it's only affecting old people, or do it or else you hate old people, and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I mean, guys are getting over it in like 2 days when they eventually got COVID. It's not like killing anybody. Now it's fighting crackheads that had fentanyl. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
Why am I going to get fired for not getting this medical procedure that apparently is life-saving? Why? That doesn't make any sense to me. So, yeah, I pulled the trigger on that. And I will say I was pretty proud because I was the first one to quit. Because I was like, you know what? I had this great aspiration of doing YouTube or leaving the department or going to work for your dad. And thankfully, YouTube worked out.
Yeah.
So my wife, I guess all of my family, so I'm a big dummy, man. Like all my family was like, you're going to give up this well-paying job just over, at least more so my wife's family, because they're like, a lot of them were law enforcement too. Like you're going to give up your well-paying job and a potential pension for just not getting a vaccine. It's like some guys, military guys are like, well, we got all these vaccines and stuff. And I was like, I'm not feeling it, man. Something in me is just saying like, I can't do it. Like I cannot do it. So I pulled the plug on it, and it sucked because I did enjoy law enforcement. I felt like, and I was also trying out for SWAT at the time too. So I felt like my career was in a good trajectory, young and fit, and I can shoot decent. And I was really, because that was something I always wanted to do, is going down the SWAT career path. And granted, my department didn't have a full-time SWAT team, but I still wanted to be a part of that. That was always like a big allure to me when joining up. So that kind of bummed me out. And I guess I haven't thought about it too much since then, but yeah, it really bummed me out on missing the SWAT train, man. Because that was what I was holding out for. And then literally those orders came out, and it was like, all right, well, there goes that dream. I guess I'm going to have to restart somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's funny is you see organizations where you're like, that's it. That's the ticket, whether it be SWAT or on the military side, it be, some sort of special operations group. And when you separate yourself and you kind of take a step back and look, and you're like, oh, wait, I can actually just do everything I wanted to do, like training wise and course wise and instruction, get everything that I wanted to anyways. I can just do it. I don't have to submit paper. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to be a part of the department or anything like that. But I mean, for some of that really high-end training, most of these organizations are going to third-party institutions anyways.
Yeah, it's like you just go to Darcy and you can go to all the training you want. You know
go
what I
to
mean?
Darcy or Accuracy First, or
Plenty of great spots. Go get your own private training. I think to me, what mattered was like actually getting to use it and get paid to use it, as opposed to paying to go get trained. I think that was also like kind of like sexy, because it's like I love training. Don't get me wrong, I love training. I think it's really fun. But I mean, there does hit a point where reality kicks in. It's like you need to pay a mortgage. You can't just go train all the time if you're not making any money.
Well, I mean, as long as if you have nods, if the power goes out, you're going to be fine.
Right. But keeping women around is the hard part. I don't know if your wife cares about nods when the power goes out.
Well, it's not about this was before we were dating, but I kept on making this joke because I put together like a ghillie thing. I had a bunch of buddies going to sniper school, and so they started putting together ghillie suits, and I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool. I like this. I like that. How can I apply this? It was bow season at the time, so I built this little ghillie thing, and it's like, it's not for hiding from deer. It's for hiding from women.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was invisible. I was the best at it.
What is it? I can't remember that one comedian. He's like, bulletproof vest stop you from bullets. Like life vest stop you from drowning. Sweater vest stop you from talking to pretty women. Of course, I butchered the joke, but you get the gist.
Oh no, dude, I lived the gist. Because I mean, when it comes to like especially on the hunting side of things or even sniper, where it's like spotting and stalking, and very effective. Well, not very effective methods with women, but they still have a correlation there.
It's effective. It's just you're going to get a Netflix miniseries about you if you go that method.
Well, all of a sudden, you start talking to them about pork chops that your family sent you that went bad in the freezer and they're turned off. I don't know. I don't get it.
I don't get it. Yeah. I mean, I'd be mad too if my pork chops went bad in the freezer. I mean, I don't.
So at what point when you were at Salt River or doing your PD, did you say like, I'm going to get in front of a camera and shoot some guns?
Oh, dude, it was pretty early on. It was like when COVID was starting and things were really slowing down. Like I had an Instagram page that I was just posting to for fun. And when things really got slow, I think I started my YouTube channel in November 2020, if I recall correctly. So it was my Instagram was going for a bit. Like I think I started my Instagram in late 2019, early 2020. Had that Instagram going for a bit. Built a little bit of a following. I think when I started my YouTube, I had around 2,000 followers. And yeah, I believe November 2020 is when I started the YouTube. And I was like, all right, let's start making YouTube videos, because everything was so slow. Everything was shut down. And I was like, you know what? This is really fun, because I actually had an old YouTube channel on my personal, like under my name and everything, that I took down, but when I went to the PD. And I loved the format of creating videos. Of course, they're all terrible, but that was part of the learning process. I made a bunch of terrible videos that are never going to see the light of day again, thankfully. And I just had the urge to get back in front, because I loved editing. I loved making videos. I love the way that you can tell a story through videos. And like, I love watching movies. And so, yeah, I think 2020 November is when that started. And I can't remember. I think it was just vibe videos. Yeah, it was just like vibe videos, like shooting like to vibey music. There was no like talking yet. It was just like, then of course the balaclava was on, so I didn't show my face, and it was just fun. It was a good time.
I think that's about this time that I kind of discovered you on Instagram. It was around like that. I think you had like 10,000, and you were still executive outcomes. It was still executive outcomes. And it was like, because at the time, I think there was a huge surge with that vibe, aesthetic
yes,
stuff.
Around that time, Forward Observations Group was probably, I think they're still pretty relevant. They're just not putting out as much content that I see, and they get shadow banned and they get hit a lot, but they were like at their peak vibiness, I would say, cranking out content, making stuff, and they had an excellent aesthetic, and they had an excellent vibe, and they were really good in like detail, and so they were really pushing this whole vibe culture, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I like that. What if I could apply it to certain different things? And for whatever reason, I think thanks to Blood Diamond, I just got on the Car 15 Blood Diamond thing, and I was like, okay, how can I apply it to this like lore?
The lore.
Tell
me a little bit more about the lore.
Well, okay. Well, what do you want to know? Like,
so, I mean, starts with the Car 15.
Yeah.
Gets into the lore. Lore being kind of the
So here's the here's a lot of the background on the channel. So let me go off on my tangent that makes me sound very schizophrenic. So I remember watching Blood Diamond. I remember the scene where Danny Archer steals the car 15 and he's holding off the other mercs and he's shooting them with the car 15. I remember seeing that scene. It's like 15 seconds where he's actually shooting. And I was like, I don't know why, but I love the look of that AR-15. And I was already into guns. Like I was a young gun guy. I first got into guns when I was like 19. And I remember seeing that scene. I was like, I never realized in my head, like, 'cause I saw it before when I was younger in the movie, but it just clicked in my head that I was like, I love that car 15. I want to clone it. So eventually one day I cloned it, got the tax stamp for it, which is not cool. We should not have tax stamps. All that is an infringement on our rights. So, anyway, so I got the tax stamp and I was like, cool, I've made it. I got the gun cloned out how I wanted, minus the moderator now, but everything is like perfect. And I was like researching more of the Blood Diamond movie, and I was learning the backstory of Danny Archer, how he was born in Rhodesia, and then he moved to South Africa and all the conflicts. And it's a really, like, the South Africa Rhodesia conflicts are, first off, they're embroiled in racism. So they are both apartheid states, which that's always brought up when you bring up those countries or show them off like their military gear. And it's like, yes, of course, racism is bad. I'm not going to disclaimer racism every time I post, right? But they have a very rich history of like conflict, and it's not taught in American schools at all. So growing up, I never learned about this stuff. So it's like unlocking a new map on a video game when you learn about history. And you have like this Rhodesian conflict. Well, why was Rhodesia formed like this? Well, this guy Cecil Rhodes go back in the day, and like all the colonization in Africa, then South Africa with all the Dutch Afrikaans and all that. So it's all this stuff that you never learned about that you're now learning about that has like, one, they have a rich military history. Post World War II, the Angolan border war with South Africa and Angola was like the largest military conflict in Africa since World War II. So it's like a massive conflict as far as size goes for that era. And it's like in the mid 90s. So there's all this going on around it. Once that war eventually ends, you have executive outcomes. And executive outcomes is essentially what that mercenary company in Blood Diamond was. So that's where the first name for the Instagram handle came from. Because I was like, oh, well, executive outcomes is no more. It doesn't exist. So that's where I was like, oh, it'd be a cool name. It sounds awesome. Executive outcomes.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like a fantastic name for a company.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very much like business in the front,
yes,
party in the back.
Yeah, it's like we are executives and we make things happen. You know what I mean? So, and then I think they had who's the YouTuber? I'm totally blanking. Count Dankula did an excellent little breakdown of what happened with Eben Barlow and Michael Mann, I believe it is, and when they got arrested, and I think Papua New Guinea, when they were trying to do a coup. So they got sent to a horrible prison. And of course, the people that wanted to do the coup were tied to like Margaret Thatcher's son and all that stuff. So it's a really cool, like, geopolitical game of chess, and like politically correctness goes out the window. Like, I don't care about that stuff. I care about like an interesting story. And so to me, it was all an interesting story. So that's like the lore behind it.
Well, and I also, I mean, with the Rhodesia conflict too, it's, you know, that's one of the things that I love about your content is like, one, seeing it, it's sexy.
Thank you.
I mean, not only nothing cheers me up like seeing a man double cheeked up in Rhodesian breaststroke.
Oh, shoot, dog.
But, you know, especially when you look at the history, just like as you were saying, and then going into like the whole like English sellout to the communists.
Yeah,
it's tragic.
It is tragic. It's one of those things where it's like that. Yes, they had the internal dilemma of racism, and it's like, but they also have this existential crisis of communism. So it's kind of like, I mean, America was kind of like that in the 60s. Like, they had segregation, and then, of course, even before that, all the Jim Crow laws and all that stuff, which is terrible. And then they're also worried about this existential threat post-World War II of the Russian communists and the communists spreading throughout the world. So, I mean, no nation is without sin, that's for sure. And it's interesting how much racism is brought up with that conflict. But it's like, yeah, racism is evil, but like, is communism more evil? You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like a country can work out racism. A country can smooth out racism. A country can't work itself out if it has no food to eat.
I mean, we pretty much did it in the 90s.
Yeah.
We pretty much did it in the 90s, but it's so interesting to me to think, especially at the time, you know, that early, like the 70s, 80s time period. You know, it's right on the back end of all that McCarthyism and almost peak Cold War. We have this huge communist conflict down in South Africa, and we were just like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and they really didn't. I mean, they had this conflict going on, and from the most part, like, they kind of got shunned from the world. And I mean, yeah, if you're gonna do racist stuff, the world's probably gonna shun you, so that kind of makes sense. So it does make this interesting little dilemma of like, due to the actions that they did, they're getting essentially cut off, and now they have to fight communism on their own. So it's this interesting little like case study of, doing more with less. So that's where kind of like it also is the lure or the allure of researching it, right?
So one of my like military mentors who kind of like guided me. He was Marine Second Anglico back in the 80s. So he was basically a JTAC before JTACs were JTACs for the Department of the Navy.
Gotcha.
And he was embedded with like Dick Marcinko, SEAL Team 6, like back in the Red Cell days. And a bunch of his best friends from that time period were a bunch of Cella Scouts.
Wow.
One of them actually lives with him right now, but he's like 90 and lost his marbles. But apparently he's got all of his guns at his ranch in Arkansas.
Oh, that's sick.
Dude, Steve.
That's sick. Yeah.
You got to hook your boy up.
Those guys are nuts, man. Those guys are crazy if you ever research those guys.
Well, it's so crazy, too, because when you look at what those dudes did with what they had, exactly what you're saying, less is more. And that was their whole mindset, too. Like, they didn't need, in the waistband holster, you would take a piece of, like a wire hanger and just crimp it this way, crimp it that way, hook it on your belt, stick it up your barrel, like, you're good to go.
Yep.
Or, like, hey, you have a pocket, and it happens to be perfect size to fit a magazine. That's crazy.
That's nuts.
That's all you need.
Yeah, I mean a lot of military development. You think of just like simple stuff like from South Africa with the Pattern 83 chest rig. Like in 1983, they're cranking out like battle vests and chest rigs that are way ahead of what the U.S. has, with their Alice gear. And you're starting to see like modern things come out, 10, 20 years before modern things come out. So it's like it's really cool, and it's just really fascinating that culture. Then I also got on the lure from like all the Chappie and District 9 and Elysium, like all those movies. I'm from Neil Blomkamp. I'm probably saying his last name wrong, but fantastic director. I loved all his movies. So combining like all his South African influence with like modern sci-fi, that was like, okay, this is like peak nerding out. This is what my jam did.
Well, and it's very niche too. And
very niche.
They always say with content, like you want to be 2 inches wide and 2 miles deep.
Yeah.
So when did administrative results come into play with executive outcomes?
So I believe it was either 2020, later in 2020 or 2021. It had to be in 2021 if I started my channel in 2020. Or maybe it was late 2020. Like maybe I started my channel and then even Barlow came back in like 2020 if I can remember. I'd have to Google it. Anyway, he comes back from like out of nowhere and restarts executive outcomes in like Africa doing mercenary work. And I was like, well, technically speaking, like I don't want to be the guy that stole his name. So I went and searched the first 2 synonyms and I just used those administrative results as a fun nod to the past. And of course, it's like I love that everyone's like, it's a dog whistle. It's like, bro, you are going way too deep into this. It's from like Blood Diamond lore. Like, get out of here.
What do they mean when they say dog whistle?
So
I don't get that.
People will call like racist things like a dog whistle, and it's like, yeah, I know, dude. It's kind of crazy. Anything that they deem like racist, and these are typically more like far left leaning people, they'll call it like a dog whistle. And I mean, due to the ties of like history, right? I could kind of see where they're coming from, but it's like personally, it's like, do you think I have anything to do with South African apartheid governments? Do you think I care about that? I'm like interested in all the weapons. Like, get out of here, dude. Yeah, it's like, so. I mean, you kind of have to deal with that, but otherwise, once you ignore all them, it's pretty fun.
You just forget about all the racism. Just it's anti-racist, it's anti-racist, anti-communist.
Yeah,
it's more anti-communist.
Yeah, I can still be anti-racist and anti-communist. Like those can exist.
But it's more important to be anti-communist.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's more important to glean from the executive outcomes and administrative results the anti-communism out of it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
That's what we're extrapolating here is we hate communism.
Yeah, I do not like communism at all. I think it is, I mean, you know what's funny is I'm actually playing with this idea. I think communism applied to a general scale is a terrible, terrible idea. I think communism applied to a very tight family unit, not that bad of an idea. Because, I mean, in theory, if like you have a father, if everything goes well, he's saved up, he worked hard, and he has a bunch in savings, and he has kids. If he dies, there's going to be redistribution of wealth. It's kind of like the family unit works. And then like if you have like other family or neighbors, it's like maybe you're more socialistic with that government form and you share stuff amongst them, but you're not like, this belongs to you. There's no like overhead state that's like, if you did not produce this, you will be facing the wall and you'd be put into a mass grave kind of communist, you know? I think I saw something where it was like communist with your family, social with your neighbors, what was it, Republican with your state and then Libertarian with the feds.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I mean, there's some stuff that definitely geeked out there, but I can kind of see where they're coming from. I kind of like that. I mean, it applies different forms of government to the situation.
It's so interesting when you think of, I mean, one, how diverse the United States is.
Oh,
too.
it's massive.
And I think people are just a lot more interesting when they're in tribes.
Mm-hmm.
When you have that breakdown where it's like, hey, family first, community, then a little bit bigger community, and then like we don't care about anybody else. Like you're on your own, dude. You get some wild groups.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the difference between like historically, like the difference between the Romans and the barbarians.
Yeah.
Like white people can't say they don't have culture.
No, it's definitely true. White boys have culture, man. They definitely have culture. But I think oftentimes, I heard that Romans often get portrayed as like these swarthy Italians. But I think back in the day, Romans were like very, very white boy looking, like very maybe Anglican?
I think it's like if you were to take like the Amalfi Coast, because I mean it's Italy, but it's like there's a lot of that. Like you said, and they're not like Italian.
No,
it's more like
that got raped into them in like the 400s, I think, or maybe the 400s, 500s, 600s when all the Arab like jihad were going through in the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, I should say.
Yeah, I think it's more like French, like almost like a French heritage.
I think so. Like I think I heard they look more like Gaul. I can't remember. I'm not a Roman historian. I'm a big Roman like history appreciator.
Do you see? Have you know that one kid on Instagram? He's got the beard, that big beard, and the super curly hair. It's like
he
Alan
looks like a
Shreds
statue.
He looks like a statue. Yeah, I mean, I could imagine that's pretty.
You got to get him on the podcast.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's so. I love how he's like 20 and he's just spitting straight facts.
The beard that man possesses is top notch.
I know. I've been working on this for months.
Dude, I know. I saw that dude's beard and I got instantly jealous. I was like, I wish I could look like a classic Roman Greco statue.
At 20.
It's great genetics for that guy, man.
Well, and great genetics for his sons and his sons' sons.
Yeah. If he breeds right, if he finds a nice, pretty girl, it's easy.
So going back to administrative results.
Sure. I know we went on a tangent.
No, that's the point of the show, right?
Yeah.
So what happened to blow it up, or was that just kind of accidental?
I think there was like this, like I started making video. It caught fire pretty quick. I started getting high views for what it was pretty much out the gate, which was wild. And I think it was like this perfect time of like this high of everyone was watching YouTube content because of COVID. And I think that was a nice little storm. And then just like the LARP vibes of going into a very niche topic that no one else had gone into before. I remember at 60,000 subs, I got like bona fide because Grantham had me on his channel. And that was my first like, breakthrough, like big time breakthrough appearance. And then from there, it felt like it just like ramped up. And it was like a fever dream of how fast it was from that point.
So for those who haven't seen your videos, what kind of content are you pushing out?
So the content, the general scheme is like I like to do some sort of LARP skit at the beginning, talking head portions in the middle with some skits here and there. And then that's pretty much it. So it's like going over a gun. A lot of the inspiration came from Grantham because I would watch him like in my patrol car and I was like, dude, I love this guy's work. And how come like no one else is like in that genre? And like I got criticized a lot for it because they're like, oh, you're stealing his, like you're just a knockoff Grantham. And I was like, well, first off, his content's awesome.
Yeah.
And then eventually it grew into like his own thing, But he was the biggest inspiration for the channel itself because I just loved his stuff and his skits. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. Like I love making videos. And so essentially it's like a LARPy skit as high of a cinematic production as I can do in my skill house with like the guys I have too. And that's essentially the gist. And we go into talking of the weapon. Sometimes I get shot at by guns. Sometimes I destroy, ballistic dummies. There's some fun stuff that happens.
Has there been a video or a review or any sort of thing so far that has been your favorite or that has been the most like impactful?
I think the MG42 is one of my favorites that I've done because that's one of my dream guns. That and the MP7, those are my dream guns. And getting to do them was probably the most fun. Getting shot at by the MG42 was a very surreal experience. Very surreal. So I had one of my admin clones, who is actually my older brother. We look and sound very similar, and I had him shoot at me with an MG42, 8mm Mauser, like 1,200 rounds a second, right? And it's a very surreal experience because like who do you know that's been shot at by 8mm Mauser MG42?
Anybody I know is probably dead now.
Right, yeah. Like they're all gone. Like it's not like a common thing like it was in the 1950s. When it was like, oh well, Jimmy was at Normandy. It's like no one else has that experience. So it's a very unique human experience, and that was probably one of my favorites because it's like very visceral. Hearing like the starship, like it sounds like a spaceship gun. Like you ever watch Band of Brothers and it's the Battle of Carentan, and Shifty Powers is getting shot at by that MG42.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like this weird, like, like it sounds like almost like not like gunshots, but it sounds like a space gun.
Like if you were to hit like a metal cable, like a steel cable.
Yeah, like it sounds like a steel cable. Like that's like that was wild. Like and then it's like that's okay, that's true to form. That was real. Like they nailed that one.
So the MG42, how are you doing that when you get shot at? Like
on this behind a berm,
just behind a berm.
We have like a phone communication.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty simple.
Okay. Is there anything that you plan on getting shot at in the future?
I wanted to do the minigun. I asked because when I did the minigun with Dylan Arrow, I did ask. I was like, "Hey, can you guys shoot at me with this thing?" And they're like, "No." I was like, "All right, that's fair." But I think we're gonna revisit it from. I think if we do it right, I think they'll be down.
I mean, that'd be pretty intense.
Yeah. Worst case, it's like if they're not down, we'll put a camera down range because that's a very like. That's a lot of lead. 60 rounds a second of 30 cal, or 50 to 60 rounds a second of 30 cal is a lot of lead.
Well, I don't think anybody's actually been shot at by a minigun and been alive afterwards.
At least not in this side of the world, unless they're like, unless they came from like Mogadishu, Afghanistan, Iraq, and they like immigrated here.
And they got super, super lucky.
They got super, super lucky, yeah.
Because like you said, 30 cal, I mean, what kind of... how heavy are the round?
It's a 7.62 by 51. I think they're just using M80 ball that day.
Just M80 ball.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still
it's a big projectile. There's a lot of heat coming out of that too.
A lot of mass.
Yeah,
dude. I had one. So one of my old platoon sergeants. He was back when you could be into it. He was super into Form 1 suppressors and DTV Innovations. One of his homies started doing Form 1s with, made a suppressor for a minigun.
I think I saw a suppressor for a minigun at SHOT Show.
Yeah, that was them.
Was that them? Okay.
Yeah. It's like a weird can.
Yeah. Like that's cool. I would love to show that off. So if they hear this or they want to be on the channel, I would love to feature that.
Yeah, it's like going from like a can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup to like a can of chunky chicken noodle soup. You know, it's like you go from the regular can, like the noodles and stars, up to like the Progresso chicken noodle soup.
Are you talking about like the can being like thick?
Dude, it's thick.
Yeah, I imagine so.
I mean, it's going over that whole thing, and it's got a different baffle setup and blast chamber for every barrel on that gun.
Yeah, that's wild. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences has been a disaster for the human species.
Well, you could almost say that there's been a second military industrial revolution since like 9/11, where you have all these. Like, dude, who would have thought of an MP7 or, 300 Blackout 20 years ago?
That's a good point.
Which 300 Blackout isn't a real round. It's just diet.
You think it's made up?
It's diet 7.62 by 39.
I like the idea of 300 Blackout suppressed because it's kind of like the modern answer to the SMG. Mm-hmm. You have a 30 cal round that's like a rifle round. You can switch it to supers, and it's super quiet. You got a lot of power.
So when we were in Iraq, there was a tier 1 group out there who was saying they started running some tier 1 groups. They started running 300 Blackout for some of their spooky boy stuff.
Yeah,
and they were trying to develop these little spongy rubber rings that they would put into their bolt carrier groups and in their star chambers, so that it would mitigate the noise of the actual bolt cycle.
That'd be impressive.
So it was even quieter than typical subsonic 300 Blackout.
That's some engineering above my head. That's pretty cool though.
But I mean, that's tier 1 technology.
It's like you're getting shot at by airsoft guns, but it's like a 30 cal round.
Yeah. Airsofters hate this one trick.
Airsofters hate it. Find out why.
So you had a pretty big, I mean, it's For anyone listening, it's May 17th. You had a pretty big day today.
Yeah, I did the unmasking video today.
So you had a mask on in all these videos. What was kind of the purpose of that? And
yeah, so it's because I started the channel when I was still at the department, and this is long before the mandatory vaccine orders kicked in. I wanted a layer of privacy and a layer of plausible deniability from my leadership in case they wanted to hit me up for anything. And I also thought, like, okay, what if I got into a shooting and they go back and this guy's like, they love to shoot guns and they play that back in court. I mean, logically, was it the smartest thing to do? Probably not. But it was just something I wanted to do really bad, and I want to make a YouTube channel. So I was like, well, if I wear a balaclava, and then I remember seeing Christian Craig had, the Obi-Wan Nairobi, and was it January 15th, 2019, he was rocking that Arc'teryx balaclava. And that look, I saw that look, dude, and I was like, that is the look. I one day will clone that, and I still plan to. And I was like, well, I'll just wear an Arc'teryx balaclava. So I snagged one and started making YouTube videos. And that was the reason why behind the balaclava is like I just wanted to have a plausible deniability. Of course, I made like an LLC. I made an LLC and I used like my full name and address because I was like, this channel will never blow up. And sure enough, so I'll own that one. That was a big oopsie on my part.
you fell for one of the classic blunders.
A classic blunder of a front-facing LLC. What an idiot! Yeah, it's fine. I'll take that L. I own that one. And then February I got doxxed, and I wasn't always expecting to get doxxed. I knew it was going to happen, like as the channel grew, because at that point it was at like 200-some thousand to I think 300-some thousand something, and I got doxxed, and it was a little bit harder than usual. Like this guy was going after my wife and my family, which to me was like very scummy because like if it's one thing if you go after me, like okay, that's fine. Like I'm the balaclava of the channel, I guess, at the time. But going after a man's like wife and family, like you don't look like the good guy. So essentially the internet did its thing and it's like a self-corrected. People actually counter-doxed that guy, gave me all his info, all his like work history and stuff like that. And of course I'm not going to share it because one, I believe in turning the other cheek when we can. And I don't want to give this loser any more time of the day than he deserves. But two, it's like the best revenge you can give to people is just not being like them. And it just probably drives them up the wall.
I mean, you're a better man than I am, because and it's weird too, because be it that I have celebrity type affiliations, familial and non-familial.
Sure,
your privacy is so important.
It's a nice thing to have. Yeah,
it's convenient. It's very convenient, and it's crazy how strategic you have to be trying to maintain that nowadays.
Yeah, I mean. Thankfully, if anyone's listening and worried about like their privacy, just give it time. And like if you just want to just vanish, you just don't post, you just don't do anything. And it's like I mean, one day if I just wanted to be private again, I would just go, okay, delete the channel, delete everything, and then just never post. And people will be like, what's going on? What happened to him? I'm sure they'd be like, what's happening? He's just gone. But it's like, well, just give it time. They'll scroll on their TikTok and they'll forget.
Well, it's like that one guy. Who was that one dude? He was like the original gun tuber with the glasses.
Oh, Duke Ashley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever happened to him?
I believe he deleted the channel, and I think he had some sort of illness that he was dealing with. I'm not sure why behind the deletion, but I think he was just dealing with the illness of MS. So he was, of course, having that go on, and it's like, well, if you're dealing with that stuff, you're probably not going to deal with YouTube.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, that was before you,
Oh yeah. If he would have kept going on YouTube, I think he would be the reigning king. Like he'd be the gun tuber emperor.
Well, he pioneered a lot of the culture too.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love that guy. I love everything he did. I look up to him immensely. I wish he didn't have to, fight that illness. I'm sure he wishes that too. It's a dumb thing to say, but it's like, dude, he's awesome. Like his work is truly awesome.
Now, you've kind of found yourself in an interesting position being a gun tuber with such. I mean, now you got weight to throw around.
Yeah,
and I think it's really cool because not only there's a lot of guys out there now who, because for the last 20 years, if in order to have any credibility, you had to have a trident or a scroll or a long tab or something fancy to influence the community or have any sort of credibility or be anybody when it came to guns, tactics, having a voice at all. So what has it been like having to, I mean, you influence the community now. Do you feel that responsibility?
I don't think I'm that cool. I think I'm just a dude having fun is my goal. I'm not here to like make authoritative claims on tactics. If anything, I'll share what I do or my experience I had, and I'm very open to the fact that it could be wrong. And someone could come along and say, "Hey, no, dude, that's wrong, and you got to fix that." I have no hill to die on, because a lot of those tier 1 guys that you were talking about, they all have different ways that they did stuff. There's not like one universal high speed like Bible. Like if you talk to like even local SWAT teams, they'll be like, okay, well we did this SWAT school, and then SWAT school we did this, and then okay, well their SWAT school they did this, and it's like there's a lot of like differences, and I wanted to be this true to who I was. Like I'm not some high speed guy. At best, I was a beat cop, some donut eating dude that's an idiot writing for tickets, right? I mean, modern day policing is a little bit more challenging than that, but but yeah, it's just if you just stay true to yourself, and it's like I just want to have fun. I want to show off cool guns that I think are awesome, and I want to deliver the best LARP that I can. I'm not trying to be some high speed guy that I'm not. You know what I mean? I don't know if you remember all the guys that were getting exposed for not being Green Berets and say they were Green Berets. Hey, this crazy idea is just don't lie about like your background and what you did. It's a crazy thing, right? So that's essentially that was it, man. It's just keep it simple like that, and you have nothing to worry about.
Well, essentially, what you're saying is you rejected the modern day CQB footwork courses, and you embraced mag dumping in the trash.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, listen, I know there are guys that need to know that stuff, but I choose to embrace mag dumping in the trash as a simple little monkey that I am.
And it's like you said, it's a better time.
It's way more fun.
So, and it's true too, because like there's so many. So I've had an opportunity to talk with a lot of guys about this, being that I kind of did some of that stuff, not in a special operations capacity, but they always say there's 100 ways to skin every cat.
Yeah.
Like it's like you got to pie around the corner. Like how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
How many guys do you have?
I think a lot of that comes down to the institutions too, because I mean usually those guys that are teaching that tactics or the weapons or whatever, like those guys, they've been in the department or the branches for 10 plus years, maybe sometimes they're pushing 15, 20 plus years. So you go back to what they were doing when they were new, what they were taught, and how they're evolving the courses, and there's all these different things and how they develop. And it's like, yeah, it's its own little ecosystem. Bunch of different ways to skin a cat. And so it's like I didn't want to touch that at all, because when I was like thinking about like, okay, how do I develop this brand? Do I teach what I learned on patrol? And I was like, no, that's boring. Do I teach because my CQ, like cop CQB, I don't know if you know this, it's all super boring. Unless it's like responding to an active shooter where you go fast. Mm-hmm. Cop CQB, it's like, okay, there's a burglary alarm. There's an open door. What do? Okay, well, you're going to pie every inch that you have exposure to if you think there's a suspect inside until you find like inch of a person, and then you start giving call outs. It's not this sexy, elegant, like breach bang clear stuff that high speed guys were doing. It's not that at all, because it's like that's a great way to get yourself killed.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully it's like for the most part in policing, you're not worried about like running into a room with a PKM that's like embedded behind concrete and steel. So I had no interest in doing that stuff, man. I just wanted to have fun and like show off and have a good time.
Yeah, well, I mean, that stuff anyways is like, I always explain it like this, where it's like you have this equilibrium of a triangle between speed, power, and security.
Yeah.
Where it's like, even within a military capacity, dudes who've been together and been training together and have kind of like, or deployed together, they're going to attack a problem so dramatically different than one of those guys with a bunch of new privates.
Yeah.
Or like a brand new cop who just got out of the academy is going to approach a situation. Like if I got that guy stacked with me, that's a completely different situation than. So what's more important, your speed, your power, your security?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was saying I like to have fun and like show a good vibe, I also do appreciate a lot of the training that guys put in. And when I say those things, I want to clarify that I don't feel the credentials to be that guy that's like, all right, this is how you clear a room. Like I never felt that credential because I never was taught like the high speed stuff. So, but yeah, there is your situations are going to change so much, because like you may be on like for the comps, you may be on a shift cycle with, you could be approaching the end of your 6 months before your shift change. and you all bid on new shifts, or if it's a year or whatever you do, or you got really good with your guys who you worked with, you all knew like the stuff they're into, how they want to go about clearing rooms, how you want to go about doing all the tactical stuff, and then bam, you get a shift change. You may be on like the day shift, all the old dudes, and they don't even have like pistol weapon lights. And they're all like, they're like 3 years away from retiring, or they're already in the drop, or they're like looking to get out, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like pistol red dots and like, what do you mean? Like, we're going to do it this way? Or you learn some cool vehicle CQB from these guys, Core Vision, or who is it? I'm totally blanking on them, but they do some awesome like police vehicle CQB stuff. It's like, what do you mean? We're like, who cares about that stuff?
So I mean, you obviously shoot a lot for your videos.
Yeah.
But how often are you actually getting out and training on your own?
I would say it's definitely, if I'm being accountable, it's gone down as these projects have been ramped up in intensity. I still like to get out and train as much as I can. Because I go shooting so much, I do also incorporate with, like, we're filming, I'll like take a break real quick and maybe run like a pistol drill. My favorite drill to run, keeps you very humble. From concealment, whatever your duty gun or your handgun is, a cold start from like 25 yards away for a headshot. Like, that's one of my favorite drills to run. A lot of times I may wet the bed. Sometimes I get it. It's like, depends how honed in I've been on training handgun lately. But it's something I do need to ramp up more. It's one of those things because I want to do it more, but it's also like other projects now, because I didn't realize the layer of time commitment that goes into having the YouTube channel, where it's like, I want to go train, but it's like, okay, well, I know I'm going shooting already, but now I have to handle all these back-end business stuff. Right. So your short answer is not enough. Like, I want to do more, but as much as I can.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a common misconception for a lot of the people, where it's like, you know, they see these YouTubers, they see these high-speed dudes, and it always seems like they're shooting, but it's like the same misconception as all social media, where they're always posting the sexy
Well, it's
stuff.
the coolest stuff. Shooting is the most fun stuff. Like, that's one of the reasons I wanted to get into government work, because I thought I was going to get paid to go shoot guns if I got into the right job. You know what I mean? Like, that's why you join. And then you realize, you're like, wait a second, this is all like 95% BS and paperwork. I got to get out of here.
Like, I can shoot more on my own, having a job that pays 10 times more than just, you know, trying to get the government to front the bill.
Yet again, I'm a big believer in being as trained as you possibly can. I think I maintain a very comfy level of proficient shooting, but the hard reality is like, I don't get paid to be a good shooter. I get paid to make entertaining videos. And it's like, I want to work on, like, people don't care how good of a shooter I am on camera. Like, does it matter? Do they want me to be a good shooter? Absolutely. But I think focusing on the story and the content of the video, and then also applying the shooting skills I have, because I don't claim to also be the best shooter. I'm not like, I am the best shooter on GunTube. I am awesome. I don't claim that, man. There are some awesome guys out there that can shoot probably circles around me. What I'm trying to focus on is like my own channel, making it as entertaining for guys as they can. Like, I want to be escape from the mundane life that, you know, we as Americans live, where sometimes life gets kind of boring and you want to go watch some fun YouTube videos about stuff that you like, you know?
So when you do have an opportunity to get out and train, you talked about a cold start headshot at 25 meters with a pistol. What else do you try to hit on? Like, what is a priority for how you train?
I think, if anything, I would be less worried about my shooting training and more worried about my physicality training. Like, I work out every day, and if I missed a week where I was sick, so I was trying to heal up, and that sucked. I hate missing like my workouts. Like, I missed my workout yesterday because I was gearing up for all the unmasking stuff today, and I did that workout yesterday. So I wasn't answering your text because I was on a 3-mile ruck after already hitting today's workout because I missed yesterday's workout. Like, right. So to me, your physicality is more important. I'm still not in my head. I don't think I'm where I want to be. I need to bump my cardio up. I feel comfy where my lifts are. But to me, that's way more important, because what good are you in a high stress situation if you're getting gassed off the rip? So you can be a mediocre shooter, but you can't be out of shape.
Well, it's like I always say, we used to abuse our privates and give them like the 249 or the 240 when they showed up, just because they would suffer, because they're always showing up as these skinny little dudes. And then you hand them a 35-pound machine gun plus ammo plus a tripod with a T&E and all the fixins. And it's like we always say, there's no such thing as heavy guns. just weak arms.
Just weak arms. Heck yeah, brother.
Like it's not too far away. You just suck at running.
Yeah. So I guess I got off on a tangent, but I think what I like to focus on would probably be like, if it's going to be training, it would probably be like full kit, gas yourself, and then go make very accurate shots. And it would be like revolving around, you know, like your job, right? As a civilian, it's like you want to be able to carry a bunch of ammo, or depending on like, you know, I'm going to rephrase this. As a civilian, I think you should be very proficient with a handgun for self-defense situations, because rifle work to me is super easy. Like rifle work is like riding a bike. You get back on that rifle and it's comfy. May need a refresher, but it's easy. Handguns is like learning how to fly a helicopter. Like that takes skill to be able to land shots from far away. Guys that can shoot handguns far, I have mad respect for. And if they can do it fast, far, and accurate, they're like ninja assassins.
When you say far, what do you mean far?
Dude, far for a handgun, I think, is beyond 25 yards.
Okay.
And that may sound close if you're a really good shooter, but it's like if you ever watch, like, I remember shooting with cops and watching them shoot, and it's like, dude, that 15 yards are like falling apart.
Yeah.
And it's like their shots are all over the place. It's stuff like that. So if guys are like 25, 50 or 100 yards with a handgun, I'm impressed. Like those are far shots for a handgun.
Now, just a handgun or any pistol caliber?
Like Glock 17. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You start making those calibers, like the guns smaller and then the calibers smaller. If you're shooting farther out with those, still impressive. Even gets even more impressive, I'd say.
What is the most effective way to improve your accuracy in that regard when it comes to?
Dude, that's a great question for a guy that knows more about that. I shoot to what my standards are, what I was trained on. I guess just keep shooting and maybe consult an instructor and work on your accuracy. If you're not making hits, maybe slow down a lot. That's what I would do. The farther you are away, the more you're going to slow down. The closer you are, the faster you can go. I mean, it's kind of like you can start point shooting depending on how close you are. So with a handgun, at least.
Well, I think a lot of people get wrapped up too on like doing the sexy drill where it's like, I'm going to pow, pow, mag change, run over here and pow, pow, and like overcomplicate it and fail at reinforcing what's actually going to make them a good shooter.
Yeah, probably landing hits too is really important.
Well, one of the best instruction I had was with Pat McNamara. He's featured on he's been featured on this show. He ran us through this drill, and it was a lot of rounds, but it was super slow and super methodical. And when you think about it, really it sets up every other drill. So you start at 5, 10, you go 5 meters, 10, 15, 25, 50. And you go 5 shots, strong hand, 5 shots, support hand, 5 shots both. Trying to just make it as tight of a group as possible all the way back. And then we went on and we did a bunch of drills and a bunch of instruction and all this stuff. And then we went back at the end of the day and went back and did it again, dude. And everybody's group just like came in like crazy.
Nice.
And it's like, dude, not sexy at all.
No.
Like not sexy at all. But you know what was sexy? Was seeing that little, you know.
Seeing that nice grouping after that good course of instruction. Yeah, that's good stuff, man.
You seeing the group pucker, if you will.
Yes. That's all stuff. That's like the hard work you had to put in that no one wants to like go do.
Well, and then all it takes is just one slight deviation there. Like, okay, now do it for time. Completely different animal. Or even just doing it like to a metronome, like, you know, that's gonna
1, 2, 3. Yeah,
you're gonna fall apart, and then just slowly adding whatever.
I don't think I can confidently say I don't remember falling apart under time, or like I don't think we ever used a metronome. I think my Achilles heel is like all right, you're gonna flip over this thing and then you have to shoot the number. It's like I hate playing like those puzzle games out of the range.
Those are the worst.
I'm like, all right, when am I solving a freaking puzzle when I need to, potentially shoot somebody? All right, you flip a puzzle and the guy's wearing red pants. It's like, oh God, get out of here.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the thinking under stress. It's a thinking man's game, but I hate like the puzzle games where I'm like playing like some sort of like brain buster. Like, God, I hate that.
I hate the ones that are like, all right, you have a blue triangle with the number 2 in red.
Exactly.
And then like a red square with the number 4 in yellow. And it's like, all right, shoot the 4 yellow. All right, now shoot the blue triangle. And you're like,
I know there's some guys out there probably love that one. I'm not one of those guys.
No.
To me, I'm like, all right, bad guy, have gun or not gun? Can you shoot or no shoot? Like, that's like, okay, that's pretty straightforward. It's not like bad guy's wearing a number 3 but has blue shirt.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what's going on here?
Well, it's like, okay, that guy looks like a threat, but oh my gosh, there's a blue 4 on his forehead. No shoot.
Out. No shoot.
You know, like there's a group, like, how do we shoot the needle in the needle stack? Like, is that practical?
I guess it's practical till it's not, man. All that. It's like one of those, like, maybe it could be like considered like shooting bro science, where it's like, it was one of those things where it's like, this seems hard, so it must be good. And it's like, wait, why is this a thing?
It's like CrossFit. It's like the CrossFit of shooting. Probably
is.
And guys who do it and are really good at it probably, I mean, I don't know. They probably do shut up about it because I don't really hear many people talk about it.
I don't hear many people talk about it. I think everyone just generally hates it.
Well, a lot of people get so hung up on like every new fad that comes through, whether it be training or whether it be like that GBRS Hydra mount or the Recce rifles or Mark 18s or
I mean, fads are a thing. I mean, this a lot of gun culture is people's main interests, and when things are evolving, it's like, ooh, what's going on here? What's the new trend?
Do you see yourself influencing some of those trends?
Oh God, I hope not, dude. I hope not. Because like all the stuff I like is like, all my favorite stuff is probably like World War II era things I get to do. I'm starting to get like more, I wouldn't say, I think I enjoy doing World War II content way more. So it's like, is that World War II guns going to change the trend of modern gun culture? I don't see myself as that. It's like my favorite modern guns are all like weird retro guns, like the carry handle guns, all tricked out. Like I have a few modern rifles for practicality's sake and some weird guns. Like I like all that stuff. It's not like I'm trying to, you know, create the next cool mount or create the next like tactical trend. I like what's cool, and I think what is like a cool vibe. So I really hope not. That's the short the TLDR.
What do you think your favorite World War II gun produced by NATO is? I guess it wasn't NATO then, but
oh man, I love that. I think it was the OSS, the suppressed grease gun. It's a vibe, dude. It's so cool. It's
that is
so
a vibe.
Cool. Like that's one of my dream guns to get on the channel. I love the BAR. The FND version of the BAR is the best version, but that's not technically American, because the Americans after World War II were like, cool, BAR set, and they never developed it even further. M1 carbine, surprisingly modern. It's like short, it's compact, it's like an intermediate-ish cartridge for the era. It's not like a rifle cartridge, but I mean,
it's like an early 300 blackout.
It's like an early, like it could be considered early 300 blackout. I think the Germans thought of them highly. I mean, the Americans really did knock it out of the park once they got the ball rolling on their weaponry.
Yeah,
like everything was like semi-automatic for the most part, and you just had like this great output of fire. Thompson's not that impressive. It's cool, but it's not like ergonomically it sucks.
And it's heavy.
It's like 10 pounds.
Have you had one on the show yet?
It's in the pipeline.
Okay.
It was one of the.
Because I was going to say, if you want, I might be able to hook one up.
No, yeah. I got one in the pipeline. Very heavy gun. Big thanks to my buddy Nick. Got the 1928 A1, and then we got the M1 versions.
So, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to. So, when Sheriff Lamb took office, one of the courthouses was like, hey, man, we had this case like 25 years ago, 30 years ago. There's a gun from the case. We don't know what to do with it. Does your department want it? And they're like, cool. And so they give it to him, and it's like in a World War II issue bag.
Dang.
And they pull it out, and it's an M1 Thompson. Dang. Like with the original mags, original case, like everything is like, it's like a 1940s World War II issue Thompson machine gun.
That's
like
sick.
Open bolt. Like we didn't know it was an open bolt when we tried to shoot it, and so we're like,
what's going on with it?
It's not going forward. Why? Like I think the safety's off, and then it. Blah.
Wait a second, there it is. Yeah.
But at least you know when you run out of ammo, you have a war club that will bludgeon anybody into the grave.
Yeah. I mean, it shot pretty good. I was impressed at how it shot for 45 ACP and how fast it shot. My groupings on the 28A1 were pretty good. They weren't as good as the MP40, but they were pretty solid.
Yeah.
The MP40 has like zero recoil.
Do you think there's a possibility for a modern application of something that operating system?
Like a
you throw some M-lock on there, maybe like a carbon fiber stock, a suppressor.
Technically, if I'm nerding out, the Thompsons have been spotted in Ukraine, like even the older version, like the 1928s.
Yeah.
with the Lend-Lease stuff have been spotted in Ukraine. But dude, I don't think with that platform. I think with the open bolt SMGs have kind of gone the way of the Dodo. I mean, considering like how good like roller what was it, the roller lock MP5s are. It's like, dude, you can't touch those. Those recoiling, how they function, like the modern subguns, how they function, are also good.
Even for the common man?
I mean, I would like an open bolt SMG, not have to worry about any sort of NFA laws.
Well, I know the MPA or Masterpiece Arms, they do a pretty sweet Mac 11.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's got like the Picatinny on top, and you kind of.
I mean, I think it's so cool. Don't get me wrong, but if you're like trying to make it like as good as you can, I think the whole operating system has to evolve.
Yeah, well, I mean, it did evolve into what we have today.
Exactly. Yeah,
and that evolution, like you kind of said, was like that 300 blackout compactness.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you got in the pipeline that you're like super stoked on?
I think the Thompson video is the next video I'm like super stoked on, because I had some Japanese reenactors come out from California, and these guys were dedicated to their craft, and I love to see like guys that are just super honed in. Like they were like, we love the World War I, World War II era reenacting. Everything on their kit was historical and had some significance. One of the guys spoke fluent Japanese, so watching them work in all their kit, like we went into one spot and we were filming, and it was like watching a historical show play out like in real time, like watching the maneuver and like creep around. It was cool. Like it was a really cool experience. That one I'm really excited about. I'm not sure how it's going to do, statistically. I don't care, because I want to make like projects that I like care about.
Yeah.
So that one's the next one I'm very excited about. Probably should be live in June, but now it's just hitting the road of like creating content. I think future plans for the channel, I would like to get into the short movies. That's one of the next evolutions I plan to get into, along with the content that's already coming out.
Yeah. Now, for the Thompson video, did you wear a pinstripe suit?
No, because it wasn't of that era. So
the 28?
That 20, no, it wasn't like the Chicago typewriter. So I didn't feel like it was worthy. Like the one you're thinking of, like the pistol grip up front too.
Yeah.
If it had that, I would consider. I think that's the 21 or the 20. Like the Thompson variants, like it gets a little bit more into the weeds. Everyone knows them as Tommy guns. But no, these were like World War II era Thompsons. So I did like Pacific Marine LARP, which of course wasn't historically perfect, but as close as I could get it on the time crunch.
It looks good.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
It looks good. Well, and you had like the frog pattern.
Yeah, the frog skin pattern. I aged it all, got it all like sunburnt and everything. And
now, how does your wife feel about having a closet that's deeper than hers?
Oh man, storage is filling up, brother. Storage is filling up, man. The wardrobe LARP is growing. I'm gonna have to maybe figure out a studio or something.
Yeah, well, I know there was a couple of guys. There was a dude that I met years ago, and he was kind of fabulous. That's a word to describe him. And he just took the third bedroom of his house.
Dang.
And just was like, this is a closet now.
Hey, man, if the man likes fashion, he's got to have the capacity for it.
That's the thing, too, is it wasn't even, like, fashionable stuff. It was, like, all that, like that, what all those Asian kids wear in Tokyo. Tech wear. It was like tech wear.
Okay.
It was like the tech wear type stuff.
What them like Asian boys wearing in Tokyo? What do they got? Huh?
Yeah, that's the most understanding thing I've ever said in my life.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. I think I knew you were going. I was like, they're probably wearing something futuristic. They're like 20 years ahead of us now.
Well, it's like the Gen Z kids, too. It's like, what's going to get the most likes on TikTok for an outfit?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's maybe they make it and they get into be the hype beast fashion people they want to be, man.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously aren't shopping at Americana Pipe Dream, who doesn't sponsor this podcast, but they definitely should.
They should. You should talk to them, man. They're fantastic young Zoomers, dude.
I've been trying to get a hold of some DCU anything.
Yeah.
And it's hard, especially when you're a thick boy.
I know, dude. When you're a thick boy, camo patterns are tough.
Well, everything is not meant.
No.
It's kind of funny. I don't know if you saw this with, either your academy class or when you were over at the res, but man, like these kids nowadays, it seems like everything I'm going to say operationally related when it comes to like law enforcement, military is meant for little dudes.
You think they're getting smaller?
They're getting smaller. I think the average size of a service member, I think this was for Ranger Regiment. The average size for like a Ranger Regiment dude was It's like 5'9", $160.
Really?
I'm like, holy crap, dude! Like, no way, Jose.
Yeah, no, that's pretty. I think I was that big like when I was 13.
Yeah, I was like sophomore year.
Yeah.
But
No, that's. I mean, definitely. I got more mass than that.
well, all the stuff for that you can't fit into.
No, I think it's all like mediums.
Schmediums.
Yeah, those guys are mediums. It's mediums.
Well, all jeans are skinny jeans when you squat,
Yeah,
and it's
tough, man.
It's
I
a
have to
tragedy.
get stretchy pants. I have to get stretchy jeans.
you have to shop a buckle.
Dude, I go to American Eagle.
American Eagle,
Mhm.
they have the stretchy jeans.
They got
now?
stretchy jeans, man. They're pretty cheap too.
This is a public service announcement to all thick boys.
All my thick fellas.
You can shop at American Eagle and get stretchy jeans.
Yeah. Hey, thick fellas, send me some pictures in those stretchy jeans.
All you double cheeked up boys.
Oh, you thick boys. Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes it tough, like buying camo stuff, especially like European stuff. It's like, okay, the calculations, I'm just going to go like a couple sizes up. Usually it fits pretty good.
Yeah. Now, what's the biggest expense running the channel?
Paying my full-time cameraman. That's probably become the biggest expense.
He's a full-time cameraman. That's pretty. I mean, that feels like one of those like, okay, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah,
I got a full-time cameraman.
I think, no one tells you it's like, all right, you've now reached the next accomplishment, right? It's not like you'll get an achievement unlocked bar in your visor. That one's a big deal to me, like, because I edited, for the most part, every video minus like 3 videos. I think I had Micah edit 2, and then another buddy of mine, I had him edit 1. But for the most part, they were all edited before he came on. And I've still edited a few. I just edited one recently. If we're like really backed up, I'll hop in. But my thought process is, because I was always like scared to give that up because I loved editing. You know, I know some guys are like, I hate editing videos. I'm like, well, I guess it sucks to suck. Like, I love it. So giving that up was tough. But my thought process is, you can bring someone on and they can focus all their attention on that, and they can do it better than you can. Because now I'm worried about like 5 different other things for making money for the channel and for coming up with new storylines and coming up with business ventures and all that stuff. It's like editing is now taking away from that potential income. So if you can pay for someone to come on and do that, then you potentially make even more money, because it's like you got to spend money to make money, right?
Right. Well, your time is money.
Your time is money, absolutely.
So do you see, like, this brand that you've created with Administrative Results branching out into things other than just YouTube?
I would hope so, for longevity. I mean, either whether it's personal investments or other like companies of some kind. There's this weird dichotomy of being a YouTuber where you want to make YouTube videos because you're a content creator, and to some capacity you are a creative type, and you don't want to be bogged down by the classical wheels of business. I remember my least favorite things back at the department was having to answer emails. And now with this channel, it's like I'm constantly answering emails and talking to people about business and stuff like that. It's all the stuff I hated doing. But I mean, granted, it's directly for myself, and it benefits the brand and all the guys that we're working with. So it's for a much better cause than government work. Dude, yeah. What was the question again?
Directions that you see admin.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. Sometimes you got to shepherd me a little bit. Sometimes I go off on a tangent. I think think about all this stuff, and like it's always going in my head like 100 miles per hour, so I'll tangent out. But I would like to. I mean, because you can only make YouTube videos for so long, right? Mm-hmm. And one of my big goals is creating jobs so guys can leave their politically correct environments that they don't like. If you like your job you're at now, great. If you hate your job, my goal is to help you escape. Like, that's what I want to do. Because I'm not one of those guys that likes those environments. I want to give guys a freedom to kind of be, not worrying about that. Yeah. If that makes sense. You know what I mean?
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because that's pervasive.
Yeah.
It's plaguing.
It is plaguing society. I think it has to do with like all the BlackRock giving companies, loans for being woke and stuff like that. But
it's the source of all the it's like the source of the surge of all the literally me guys.
Yeah.
Like, all these guys, they look at the literally me stuff, and they're like, that's literally me, because I feel that way, but I'm not brave. Not brave enough to start a YouTube channel and shoot guns on it.
I mean, that doesn't require a lot of bravery. It just requires you being like partially an idiot.
It does require a lot of a moderate amount of intestinal fortitude to be like, you know what? I'm a cop right now. I do pretty good because I know how much Salt River starts at. It's good.
So I literally went like I doubled my salary overnight because I was I was a tack rat for trim carpentry for like track homes. So I was making like 30 grand, and then they started me at like 60 grand, and I was 22, no college, no debt to worry about, and it was like instantly like overnight. Some of my paychecks I saw it, and I was like, oh my god, I am crushing life. This is awesome. Yeah. So. I mean, and you, of course, will make more money as the years go on. But, yeah, it was definitely scary to leave that because it was like that comfy, like, your check is coming because it's government work,
Yep. And to say, and not just to die on that because, like, I unfortunately wasn't in a situation where I was able to leave my job due to the vaccines and was hammered pretty hard into submission over that.
Yeah.
And, dude, to be able to, like, to be faced with, like, dying on that hill and being like,
yeah, well, that's the freedom of movement. As if you're a sworn police officer, it's like you don't want to show up to work. You just say, "I quit." Boom. There's no contract. There's nothing like holding you there. It's
really,
it's like they don't own. Like it's not like the federal government where like you sign your life. Like, I don't want to say like sign your life away, but you sign your life. You sign your life away, right? Yeah. That's a general consensus. Guys tell me. With law enforcement, it's like you're an employee. You get a commission by the state or by the res, or by both. Which for my case, and it's like at any point in time you can bounce out, or they could, in theory, they could also fire you for reasons, but it gets a little bit more convoluted. But yeah, I have no contract holding me there. So as soon as they dropped that, I was like, well, like I already had in the back of my head the pre-plan. Like it wasn't just like they dropped it and I was like, okay, I quit. It was already like I have a feeling they're gonna lead up to it because they were all like kind of drinking the Kool-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
So I got in trouble for like not wearing masks on calls and certain stuff like that. And it's like looking back now, it's all silly, but at the time it was kind of like, this is the hill I will die on because I am young and about it. And, all the emotional politics that go into it. But yeah, dude, I already had the mental reps of like, okay, if they do this, then I will quit. And I'm going to lean into YouTube. Because I was talking to the guys that I was working with about like, hey, if I can get like this money mark, I could feel comfortable for a bit, like doing full-time YouTube. Because I had no kids. My wife was working. And it's like, if any point to try this out full time, it would be now. It's much less risky.
Now, since you've gone out and done the whole YouTube thing, particularly being a gun tuber, what kind of heat are you up against now? What kind of hills are you having to fight up?
Well, I mean, this unmasking was my big hill that I was worried about personally. I think just gravitationally now it's more worried about politics, the banning of guns, the political climate there, worrying about the censorship of big tech. Those are the two big ones. Those are the two big existential threats. Because at any point, someone at big tech could be like, nope, channel gone, boop, and there it goes. Like years of work just gone.
Yeah.
Like no warning. All I have is like the videos on my hard drives. So that's like the big scary one, but it's like, oh, I can't control that, so I'm not going to stress about it. If they do it, all the fans and all the GunTube people will just go elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's going to suck, but I think it will bring us closer together ultimately.
Have you gotten any heat from YouTube or Instagram?
No, not yet. I say not yet. I worry about it, but once you learn to play the games, because you can read their policies.
Yeah.
And if you lawyerese a little bit, you can kind of get around of some of their stuff they don't like.
I saw a couple of videos for a while where dudes were very like, we're not putting on a suppressor right now.
Yeah,
or
that was
I think that was
I heard about that from people that talk to YouTube. I think that was a big mistake. Like I heard the CEO was like, Susan was like, "Hey, back off," or it was like an AI mistake because like I went back and blurred some like 'cause I attached suppressor like stuff that Mike Grantham was getting hit up for Forgotten Weapons, all these guys for the suppressor stuff. I had screwed suppressors on and off my MP7 video, and I never got hit with anything, but they were getting hit. So I was wondering if it was like an algorithm thing, which I think it may have been, and they fixed it. So surprisingly, I'll give YouTube credit for what they are. They are decent for working with gun guys. Like they will work with us. I think, of course, I'd like no restrictions, nothing to worry about. But yet again, it goes back to the lawyerese language.
Yeah. Now, have you gotten any heat from like any sort of agencies over featuring certain things or?
No, everything's pretty much above the belt.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, I shouldn't say pretty much. Everything is legally 100% above the belt.
Right. Well, I know it gets, like I said, it gets weird with some of that stuff. Like even this podcast has been quote unquote, like it's been allegedly.
So yeah, here's the thing: is that government does not like any sort of criticism. And when I say government, I mean a lot of the times the leadership in that government. And these are guys that technically probably aren't even elected officials. They're guys that have worked their way up, 20 plus years on, and they're in spots of leadership. And they get any whiff of any sort of criticism of their office or their leadership or their department, they clamor up. For whatever reason, they clamor up. It's like they never had to deal with criticism before, which is to me wild. Because I'm like, if it's a government agency such as a law enforcement entity, I should have asked who's like criticizing you more. But I'm like, literally, the entire job gets criticized 24/7, and you can't handle a little bit more. You're worried about some guy's podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It literally is also my First Amendment right. I can talk about this stuff. I'm not, defamation if they want to bring a suit for it, but that even looks better if they do. If someone's going to show you and try and shut you up, it means you're onto something.
I know some other guys within the community have gotten involved with like Firearm Policy Coalition and a couple of other groups. Have you kind of gotten approached by them or dipped your toe into those waters?
I would like to help out as much as I can. What that would look like, I'm not sure. Maybe helping raise money or something like that to help with that fight for the legal, legislation, all that stuff. I guess what I'm doing right now is just propaganda. If it was like the big overall picture of just bringing on people, getting them into our way of thinking, encouraging gun ownership for the American citizen. That to me is what's like very important. Is the more people that have guns and own guns, the harder it becomes for them to restrict us, because that is at the core value, like what makes America America, is like the armed republic.
Right. Well, and there's also been huge attacks lately too on a lot of those.
Yeah.
On a lot of those fronts.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's like those blue states spanning a lot of stuff, which is a big bummer.
And the pistol brace thing.
Mm-hmm. That one's also another huge violation. The problem is I don't think anyone's gone to. Oh crap! I gotta sneeze. Are you able to cut that out in your edit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was a false alarm. Sorry. So I wonder, and I don't know if I want to be that. I don't want to be the sacrificial lamb, but like I don't think anyone's taken a lot of these cases to the Supreme Court with a solid foot. A lot of times when you see them, at least from off the top of my head, like you see the ATF charging people for having an FRT or for having a pistol brace, I think it's usually in conjunction with other firearm violations. Like they already had like illegal machine guns or SBR, so they can tack it on there. Now, technically, I think it's all infringement.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all infringement, and it shouldn't be a legal issue. And it's like, I think it's just charges that they want to have to throw at, maybe gangbangers or something. It doesn't really ever. It rarely ever affects people that aren't criminals. I think I can think of like one SBR case where this dude was an idiot and got hemmed up for having an SBR, and he's like, "Don't take a picture of that, or don't take a picture of my serial number." You know what I mean? And it's like he got hemmed up. He wasn't even a bad kid. And like it's like a 10-year violation. I think they gave him like a year or something like that, which he still never should have got that. Which it breaks my heart to see that.
Well, a lot of this stuff, it's so absurd too. Like with for suppressors, for instance, I was because there are a lot of good guys who are fluent in legalese around all that stuff. And it's like, well, you have the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms. What classifies as a firearm? A metal tube, little cups inside, is not a firearm.
No.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. That one's nuts. I'm surprised those ever got banned.
Yeah.
In Europe, you can go and buy them over the counter.
Denmark.
In certain countries. Once you have your license, like they have to have like their licenses, but like for the most part, I think once they're clear, they can buy whatever they want, minus machine guns.
Did you see the Moonlight Industries?
Yeah, oh yeah, I talked to him about it.
He's pretty
right down the street.
Yeah, he's right down the street here.
Yeah.
And what did you talked to him about it? What did he have to say?
I briefly talked to him. Nothing like about the case or anything of that, but he was essentially saying like, the feds showed up, the ATF agents showed up, and they're like, hey, if you have an FRT, here's your chance to give it up. And so they don't have a warrant or anything, so they have no legal standing to be there. They're just doing a knock and talk, essentially is what it was.
Yeah, which is still bold.
It's very bold. To me, it's like of all the crimes to go die on, you're worried about those. Of all the things happening, you guys are spending resources on going to knock and talk everybody about their FRTs.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild to me.
Well, especially looking like a soup sandwich, too.
Yeah, especially, man. I have a lot of conspiracy theories about those feds. I think a lot of them, like the feds that don't look scary, they're like these college graduates and they have a bunch of debt and they're looking for a job. And so they're browsing like .gov jobs and they find like, oh, I guess I go, I guess Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. That sounds fun. They have like no idea.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my conspiracy theory.
Well, there's a lot of, there's a lot of conspiracy. I think there's a lot of conspiracy behind some of this stuff. Like when you look at some of these, so there's an organization that is out there, and they were doing a bunch of humanitarian stuff for Title 42 ending down on the border. Just like last week. Like last week, they were down there. And I mean, that's all public recreational area anyways. You got Coronado National Forest, you got Buenos Aires Wildlife Reserve. And so they're down there with, there's a few side-by-sides, and obviously that's a pretty dangerous areas. There's, two-legged and four-legged animals walking about with bad intentions. And so, obviously there's a lot of humanitarian opportunities there, but the Border Patrol guys down there in that sector threw a shit fit about having anybody down there at all that wasn't cartel. So like the whole time they were seeing cartel drive in and out, up and down the border wall, picking up, dropping off, doing stuff, rolling up smugglers in some of the more remote parts that were like getting lost and stranded out there by coyotes.
Yeah.
Border Patrol does nothing about any of that. But there's like 4 gringos that were just, hey, we got a bunch of water bottles. Hey, we're helping you guys out.
Some good intentioned folks.
Dude, and what ended up happening is they got kicked off a couple of properties. They're like, hey, you can't camp here. You can't be here. Okay, cool. So they went to the next one, and then they were so adamant about getting them out of there, they brought in actual, like, the Fish and Game and the Wildlife Reserve chiefs. They came down and they're like, hey, yeah, you guys don't have the right permitting and licenses and permits for your vehicles to be out here, so leave.
Dang.
Or you will be federally prosecuted and arrested. Where do you find guys to even do that stuff?
This fella's following orders, I guess.
Good job, boys.
Yeah,
really saving America.
Yeah, I mean, after a certain point, I don't know their hearts. I don't know what the internal politics are, and it really bums me out to hear about that kind of stuff.
Where do you? I mean, it's got to be fear, right?
I think absolutely. I mean, a lot of it could be fear driven, worried about their next paycheck.
Yeah. How do you think guys can get over that?
Well, I mean, I talk to guys all the time, and they'll be like, "Dude, congrats, you escaped. You're free. You're doing your thing." And then, like, they're always like, "Oh, dude, I want to get out of law enforcement. Or I want to get out of the job. It sucks." And what they'll do, it's like they talk about it, but they're never like, "Oh, I have this awesome skill set of being a people person," because ultimately, like, a lot of like local law enforcement guys deal with people every day. They have to get really good at it, right? And they are always really scared of taking this risk of the jump to the private sector because they're worried about a paycheck. And then to me, it's like, I remember talking to a guy, one of the guys I looked up to. He'd been a cop at a few different agencies, and I really looked up to him. I liked him a lot, and we were talking. He's like, "Yeah, man, job's pretty cool, and it's like a cool thing. At the end of the career, you get maybe like you can get a pension of like I think $1 million, some dollars, right? That you eventually get paid out. I think that's what it was. And I remember thinking, like, at the end of 25 years to have $1 million, that sounds like a lot of money. Sounds like a lot of money, but in 25 years, one, that's not going to be worth as much money as it with inflation. If you take a risk and you start a business, you could be making way more money than that. If you do all your cards right. Even if you're not making that much money, you could be making more money than you are being a cop, doing whatever you want, having a great life, not worrying about a terrible job. Because to me, I think the law enforcement institution needs a major overhaul. I'm not an expert, of course, but I having experienced it, I have definitely some thoughts. But guys, I mean, if they think they have a skill set and they have any intuition that they could take the leap and succeed, I think they should act on it. If they know that they're idiots and they like, hey, I'm bad at business, I'm really good at being a cop, I love what I do, hey, maybe your grind and your fight is changing that institution. But if you have any sort of business intuition and you have it in your gut feeling that you know it's going to work out, I would say take the leap and go do it.
I think that's the best advice you could give anybody.
It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. But it's like if you're willing to get shot in the face on a traffic stop for like $30 an hour, whatever your department pays you, why you not willing to start a business and take a risk in that aspect and to make way more money?
I've never thought of it like that.
Why not, dude?
Dude, that's it right there.
Why would you want to get shot in the face for a taillight? Some dudes are like, you know what? I'm going to shoot this guy in the face. And guess how much you're making an hour? $30, $35. Maybe you're an off-duty making $60 an hour. It sounds like a lot of money. But if you work for yourself, you can do whatever you want and make probably even more money if things go really good. And if it fails, you learned. You learned and it failed. So what? You're not dead.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I think there are guys that need to be out there confronting evil, but they also need to have an institution that is doing both good for the citizen body as well as for the law enforcement officer, right? Because I always believe in guys confronting evil. I think because to me, like, I was thinking about this in preparation for the podcast in case you ask any cop questions. To me, what law enforcement represents is like handling all the problems that the responsible citizen doesn't want to handle. You know what I mean? Like, you're kind of handling all the garbage problems. Like, oh, your neighbors are having a fight and they're hitting each other. Well, legally, I don't have the backing to go handle that. Morally, I can handle. I can go in there and say, hey, stop hitting each other. This is wrong. You shouldn't do that. Like, say a dude's beating up on his wife and just turning her face into mashed potatoes. Morally, it's like I have this obligation, but legally, I don't have the backing of the state. Those cops do have the backing of the state, right? So they're there to handle problems that I shouldn't have to handle because I want to focus about making money and providing for my family. I don't want to have to focus on everyone's trash going on around me. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I kind of viewed it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not some like, yeah, it's a noble job. It's a good job. You're doing good work. It's risky, but you're not some like superhero. You're definitely not. You're just a normal dude. You're there to like solve problems that people can't solve themselves, apparently.
Well, it's not that, it's like you just said, it's not even problems that they can't solve. It's just problems that they're going to get in just as much, if not more trouble if they try to solve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing, too. It's like you go insert yourself into a situation. Now, legally, those parties could be coming after you for some sort of civil lawsuit. And you get yourself into more trouble. And it's like, well, I was trying to help. Well, I know you're trying to help, but now you're facing a lot. That happens a lot.
Did you see that one kid in New York?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he put the guy in a chokehold because he was drugged out and being crazy on the subway and hurting people, and he was a threat. Chokes him out, puts him in the recovery position. Guy ends up dying, and now he's facing 25.
Yeah, I hate that stuff. I hate the idea of like a good citizen being like, I will help this problem. There is a clear problem. And then they help and things go sideways or things like just look bad. You know, it's like, dude, this guy was trying to help out. This guy was being a threat to the people around him. You know what I mean? And he stepping in now gets in trouble. Like, that's not how society should. That doesn't reward a healthy society.
Yeah.
Like, if you really look at the health of a situation, that does not, like, that, I don't want to be in New York then. If I step up and, like, some woman's getting accosted or someone is getting threatened by some other dude and I step up and help, and then I'm looking at jail time now because I helped her out or helped people out around me, it's like, what sort of hellscape is that?
Especially when you have district attorneys who are charging people for that stuff and allowing drug dealers, like, not just drug dealers, but, like, cartel syndicates to just...
It is a hellscape of probably woke culture simmering to the surface of all them indoctrination over the years, dude. It's a very, very scary situation.
As one who has done this, what are the most important things to escape the matrix?
Are you talking about like financial freedom?
Financially, firearms wise, all that stuff. What do you need to escape the matrix?
Kind of like when we talked about the tactics, how there's 100 different ways to skin a cat. I found what I was good at, and I leaned into it. So for whatever reason, I feel comfortable talking to a camera. I feel comfortable being a goofball and making videos, and then scaling it up in a business sense. Finding what you're good at and learning how to market it and monetize it is probably going to be the key to you getting out. And it may not always be as awesome as like doing YouTube. Maybe you figure out a business where you find a service and you can capitalize on it. there's a ton of different ways to make money. I am not some financial guru. I am definitely not rich. I feel very blessed to have the YouTube life to make money off of it, to where I have the freedom to do what I want. But I'm not like rich by any means. To me, I'm trying to like build wealth for the family. So when I die, my family has nothing. Like I don't want them to worry about money. But as far as like guns go, it's like make more money.
Yeah.
That's the Matrix thing, man. I do think like, because to me, I see like Andrew Tate talking about escape the Matrix. Oh, we got to escape the Matrix, get a Bugatti. I'm like, I don't think that way. I don't care about like the luxury products. There's one luxury item I want to buy, and that is a Breitling Chrono Avenger from Blood Diamond. That's the one luxury item I want to buy. I don't care about supercars. I don't care about yachts. I don't like helicopters are really cool and planes are really cool from like a guy standpoint. I don't care about the luxury stuff though. So I'm not like trying to, because I hear of people all the time like they're making $800,000 a year, but they spend $750,000 and they're still in debt. It's like, what are you doing? Like, what's like, if you just live below your means, you can be you don't need a lot to be happy. Get off social media. Don't be terminally online.
I mean, a Breitling is a good source of happiness, though.
I would assume it would. I know for a fact I will feel the same if I get that watch. Like if I spend the money, I will feel the same. I will just be like, ooh, this is cool. I have the Blood Diamond watch. Like I'm not going to be a better man. I'm not going to be cooler. I think it'll just be like, neat. I finally got it. It's a symbol of like how far the channel has come.
Yes and no. Have you gotten into luxury watches yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, dude.
I'm sure there's like a gateway opens that like all the other luxury watch guys are like, is that a Rolex? Is that a Breitling? Is that a...
Yeah. Oh, no. So this is a sidebar, but
sure, go on.
It's like when you get into guns and you like, you get a Glock and you're like, oh. And then you get an AR and you're like, oh. Mm-hmm. And then you get a nice AR and you're like, oh. Yeah. And then you need to have everything all the time, or at least you familiarize yourself with everything, and and you understand what, like when you see a guy, like you can have two ARs and one can be a Anderson and one can be a Knights, and you like, to the common man,
two guns,
they both shoot the same ammo, both pretty much exactly the same, but you know the difference between.
That's fair. That's fair. And the problem is I'm not a watch guy, and I don't claim like this watch like better than thou title. I know the watch guys are crazy. And if you're a watch guy listening, I respect you.
Well, it's not necessarily better than thou, but how I explained it to my buddies, because when I got back from Iraq, I got a luxury dive watch.
Is that the deployment money or what?
Yeah, man.
Right. Come on.
And so I got a luxury dive watch, and a lot of my buddies were like, dude, like, why would you spend, it was only like $1,500 entry, but it's still very nice.
That's a lot of money to pay for a watch.
Yeah. And so they were like, why are you, dude, I get just as many compliments from girls on my Walmart watch. I'm like, no. This is not about attracting young women. This is about attracting old men, because old men are into luxury watches. And when you say, hey, man, I really love your James Cameron Deep Sea, dude, do you know how many people own a Rolex James Cameron Deep Sea? Like 100.
Yeah, so you met a rare gem.
And when you can talk to them about that, something that's so like, it's like when someone says like, oh, hey, Aaron, I really love this MG34, but like, and you're like, oh.
How do you know what an MG34 is?
Yeah, and they break down all that real above the shoulders nerd stuff that you're into and so passionate about, and like that you imprint on.
You're unlocking the skill tree of getting to know people better.
Right? About what they're passionate about. It's crazy, but it works.
I admire that.
And because rich guys are into watches. And they always say that your net worth is the total, it's like the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And when you can surround yourself with guys that are into really high-end watches, they got a high net worth.
You may be onto something. I like where this is going.
Dude, so Cody Johnson, I was hanging out with his manager backstage, and he had a Rolex Deep Sea James Cameron edition from Titanic. And it was like, dude, I pointed that out, and blew his mind. Yeah. He was like, the only guy I've ever met who can point out a watch like that is Cody. So I was like, all right, cool.
You're in the club, dude.
Dude, it's working. It's
You're in the club. Everyone's gonna go out now and be like, all right, I gotta learn my watches. I mean, I I'll have to go do some more research to open it up.
Yeah, dude, get that Breitling.
It's gonna happen.
Just do it.
So I literally just crossed over 500,000 today, and I always told myself if I get to 500,000, I'll go buy the watch. So I called the store and I was asking about it, and the guy's like, "Oh, they discontinued this watch like 15 years ago." I was like, "Oh crap."
Are you talking? Is it the titanium one?
It's the one from Blood Diamond.
Okay.
So I told him that, and he's like, "No one's ever called and asked for the watch from Blood Diamond." And I was like, "Listen, I'm a massive nerd. I'm on the hunt." He's like, "Well, technically they discontinued that model if I'm thinking of it. If you can probably find one on the website of like a similar style, or hit up the used watch market." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." Like, to me, like I'll buy like a beat up old one. Like I don't care because I want to have it. Like I'm not trying to get like this fancy new thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a big dum dum. So that's the plan, man. Dad advice.
Dad advice.
You want some dad advice? Don't watch porn, evade taxes, honor God. Legally, the middle one's a joke. Legally.
You know what, though? Legally, there is a way to do it, though.
There is legally a way to do it. You got to figure it out. It's going to take some lawyerese and some lawyers.
Not even. All you need to do, for you listening, if you want to evade taxes, not evade taxes, but pay as minimal taxes as possible, is you own your own business, you own a 501c3, you donate your taxable income into your 501c3, or you have business associates and friends with other nonprofits that you can donate back and forth to, and you maintain all your capital.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That's actually a really easy way of saying it.
Yeah.
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 You're also only as good as your accountant, so if you do a business, make sure you find a good accountant.
Mm-hmm. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Where can we find you on social media or websites, all that?
Kate, thanks for having me, man. All going to be administrative results. I got a second YouTube channel I'm going to spin up, start doing some podcasts of my own. So go ahead and check those out. If you hit one link tree, it should take you to everything on Instagram, YouTube, wherever you're at.
And that's at administrative results.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
But don't watch it because it'll make you dumber.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. If you want to support this podcast, you can go to fearnotdoright.com. We got merch. We got more merch coming out and kind of doing a whole resurgence with that on that front. And we got all of our podcasts that are available on Spotify, iTunes, and pretty much anywhere else you listen to podcasts except for YouTube because they've already shut us down. But that's okay. Thanks for listening. Until next time, fear not and do right.
Oh.